And Brian Twining, we're down to two spots in the playoffs, 2 races in the NASCAR season. 2 drivers are locked in. We'll talk Martinsville, playoff championship odds, what to do with your card, whether you have exposure on some of these guys or not. Look at some incredible numbers and recap our boy 4-5 getting to victory lane. Tyler Reddick, baby. We got some tickets locked in. I hope you joined us last week when we told you to do that. All of that and more on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, Tyler Reddick gets it done. It looked like a Ryan Blaney gets it done. We were sitting pretty with some good numbers on both guys.
Yep.
Martinsville is obviously much more friendly to Blaney, so I think both of us are ultimately happy, especially with the exposure we have on Reddick and the concern that he doesn't even get a shot with some of the other names that he's contending with this week. But Reddick locked in, Logano locked in. We have Martinsville this week with 2 spots on the line, and then we're off to Phoenix, baby, racing for a championship.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we wound up with the best case scenario at Miami because everybody knew coming into Martinsville, Tyler Reddick was going to be in the worst spot of anybody of the championship contenders because this is not a track where he exceeds at. They knew it was a must-win situation. This is exactly why we came into last week hammering his outright bet, looking at Blaney as well. I had said that I thought Blaney amongst the group of drivers was the best overall for the next 2 tracks that we had. Sure enough, Ryan Blaney was well in line to potentially take the victory there. I mean, even with Kyle Larson checkers or recordsing himself out of contention, which how predictable was that shit right there, by the way? Yeah, look, I am very happy to have bet those 2 outrights, Blaney and Reddick, before the race or before practice and qualifying, and basically sat on that just because that's kind of who I expected. I personally also had Denny. So, I mean, coming to the end there, I was sweating bullets just thinking what could possibly happen here that's going to ruin my day.
I thought Chase Elliott was going to win and that we would miss out on some of the best of his number.
Yeah.
And we were going to be hating life because, yeah, I love the 12 coming in. He was the guy that I wrote up in our newsletter. He was the guy I was most excited about. He was the first guy I texted you about when I was going through some initial stuff. Obviously, the 45 was a great number. We jumped, we talked about that too, and I jumped in on that, and all of a sudden his number was gone, and by the time practice and qualifying was done, it was obliterated.
Yeah, and that was something too, like it's going to be the same situation this week here at Martinsville. If you like a guy to win the race this week who's not currently above the cut line, like you need to add their championship future, whether you have exposure to it already or not, in my opinion, just because the numbers are insane on the guys currently below the cut line.
So we'll talk all things NASCAR playoffs. We'll look at odds. We'll give you some thoughts. We'll give you some ideas of kind of stuff we're sitting at. But let's talk Homestead before we look too far forward. So I'm going to pull up our betting sheet, which is nice to see because there's a lot more green on it this week. Thank you, Mr. Tyler Reddick, cashing that 7-1. Wish I had doubled down on like you did, but that's okay. Obviously having Blaney as there. Byron,
he just kind of floated in the weeds. Like
he always felt like he was just on the cusp, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
And watching the live odds, you could tell that he wasn't a serious contender because when everybody else up front was single digits, he was 25.
I was just going to say, yeah, he was always in that 20 range. And I think as like off-putting as that may be, look, still another solid run from the 24 team. I don't think they're going to be bad this week in Martinsville. They're currently by a very small margin above the cut line. And this is the kind of racing that you kind of need to do to get to Phoenix. And I think that's the goal here. It's not necessarily to be on fire or anything of that nature. It's just just get there. That's what you need to do, is just get there to have a chance.
And he's very much back into Jimmy Johnson mode, as Wormy said. Like, he's just consistently at the top, running strong races, top fives, not winning a lot, but that's okay. Blaney over Chase Elliott, obviously cashed that. Elliott was much better than I had anticipated. I thought he'd be okay, but I thought he'd be more of a like 10 to 15th place car than, because he was legitimately one of the best. And I was trying to figure out how to live bet him. I couldn't do it. I did add some Larson at 8-1 right after his wreck, which I was like, okay, baby, let's go. And then obviously he's stuck in the back for a while. And I'm like, oh, that was a dumb bet. And then all of a sudden we're back around and he's coming close to the end. And then I'm like, okay, let's go. And then obviously he shits the bed. So that was fun. Blaney over Chase Elliott, get that. Dylan over Dinger. Dylan.
Look,
Dylan.
I was texting you in the beginning of the race because over that first run, Austin Dillon had made up a shit ton of track position. And I have a suspicion that maybe he had some contact with the wall that, of course, they didn't report on because he's not a playoff guy. And, after the pit cycle and all that stuff, he never really got any better than running 20th or 18th through 20th. And so I think maybe something happened to the car because early on, he looked good. Like, he went from 30th to 15th in a matter of like 30 laps before the pit cycle started. So, clearly I missed on that, but I will say, me adding that group again, I would do it again. Simply based off
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, simply based off his history here.
Yeah, and like Dinger made up some ground towards the end, but he was kind of whatever. Briscoe and Gregson were fine, but they weren't
were
like
nowhere near as good as what their practice said. And that was what I'm not going to tout and say I was right. Like, clearly they had good cars, but I think normally the cream rises the cream rises to the top at tracks like this, and you can't take practice as the end all for what we're going to see during the race. And that's why I didn't necessarily jump on board with either of those guys.
Yeah. Vegas will always be my favorite track. Obviously, been there a few times, cashed the Byron outright live. That was very cool. But Homestead is right on 1B. I love Homestead. I love betting Homestead. I love that you can actually make moves and pass and do stuff if you have a better car. You're not stuck in traffic. You're not like, if you have a good car, you're going to get a shot to run up front and you're going to get a chance to contend. And I appreciate that. And then I don't appreciate Mr. Tyrone Gibbs, who is dominating Ross Chastain all day. That should not have been a sweat. And of course, he can't keep his car out of the wall and he has all kinds of issues. And then he's basically just floundering, even though Ross had nothing for him. Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's NASCAR
that's
for you.
Racing, though.
Yeah, and exactly. So, like, my Bubba Wallace over Christopher Buescher.
Yeah.
Wallace was leading that matchup all day until he wasn't after the last pit cycle. Like, I don't know if the 23 team had another bad pit stop, which, I mean, 2311 was having their issues on pit road. But, that just goes to show you, like, you never know what's going to happen during a race. And that's why as we transition into Martinsville here, like, when you look at the current standings in the playoffs, Christopher Bell is 27 points or 29 points to the good. He is not safe at all. No. This is not a place where you can just ride around and hope to get there. With how many of the guys below the cut line, they're all really good here. And
let's look at it. Because Tyler Reddick locked in, Logano locked in. Right now, Bell, is this right? Or is this?
Yeah, that's up to date.
Yeah. So it's Bell and Byron currently, but like, we'll look at odds, but Blaney is right up there. He could easily win and get in. Chase could easily win in and get in. Denny could easily win in. Kyle Larson could easily win in. And then it's really going to be whoever finishes second or the next playoff driver, right?
Well, and the thing, I think the big worry for a guy like Christopher Bell or William Byron is if Kyle Larson just runs really well, say he grabs like stage points throughout the day and he finishes third, he's likely going to jump William Byron. And then if Denny Hamlin goes out here and wins, or Ryan Blaney or Christopher or Chase Elliott, the 3 favorites for the race, if one of them wins, like Byron's out, and then maybe Christopher Bell somehow gets knocked out, because as I was telling you prior to jumping on here, of the 6 drivers that are currently not locked into the championship 4, Christopher Bell is the only one with an average finish worse than double digits, or worse than 10th, 15th, 5 spots behind the next worst at like 10.4. He only has 2 top 10s in the 5 Gen 7 races. Yes, he won here a couple of years ago in a race where he needed a victory, but he is probably the 4th or 5th best guy at this track. Like,
Yeah, I mean, has the longest shot of everyone of anyone who needs to lock in. He's the only one with double digit odds. Everyone else has single digits. He's clearly
exactly.
behind the 8 ball, and he's been the most dominant car. Obviously, if he can get to Phoenix, he's going to be either the favorite or second favorite behind Reddick. There's a lot to like, but he has to get there, and if he doesn't get there, T's and P's. So let's look at DraftKings before we flip over and look at the championship odds to kind of go through it. So a good week on DraftKings. I think we got some of the pieces together. Stupid Truex. Why do I do this to myself? Stupid Truex.
I would say
Blaney
that
was great.
everybody was
Hamlin
on
was
the Marty
great.
Party train.
Ryan Preece, call the day. Started 35th, finishes top 10.
F yeah,
Bell
baby.
moves forward. Keselowski was really good. He was much better than a 17th place car, too.
Yeah, and
Kind of
then real quick on Ryan Preece, I don't know if anybody else saw this, but scrolling Twitter prior to jumping on here, I saw some little audio snippet talking to some NASCAR official where they were talking about the tire test here at Martinsville, and he had a Freudian slip where he said, and Ryan Preece was in the 60, his ride for next year. So apparently, I don't know how true this is, but the rumors are going to start. It sounds like Ryan Preece, who currently doesn't have a ride officially for 2025, is going to be jumping into the 3rd RFK car in the 60.
Yeah, I think that I've read rumblings of that, and they've been like, announce Ryan Preece to RFK and all this
Yeah.
stuff. Kind of interesting.
I mean, that's just waiting for the charter agreement bullshit to end. So
yeah, they're waiting to deal with all that nonsense. Another strong lineup. It's the same line. Oh, that's right. I entered this so I did the single entry, I think. Yeah, single entry, and then I did it in the 3 max. And then obviously Reddick was great. 97 laps led, a win, 35 fastest laps. Byron was great. Byron and Blaney both rewarding those who rostered them was awesome.
Yep.
Obviously, if you could get both of them, plus you were sitting in pretty. Gibbs, obviously, I think he was much better than where he finished, obviously, but
I feel like Gibbs actually wound up being 15th place car or something. Like I don't know if he was top 10 worthy or anything like that. So
yeah.
I don't know. I definitely missed on that one for sure.
I know there was some optimism about him. I don't know. It's funny especially the last 2 races, like the cream has really risen to the top, and it's been all playoff guys. Harrison Burton was fine. Dylan was whatever. Blaney. It was you wanted Byron, you wanted Reddick, you wanted Blaney. And if we had Reddick in this lineup instead of Byron or instead of Larson, we're winning all the money. So all right, let's look at championship odds. And run through some kind of game theory, because there is a big opportunity, especially if you like some of the guys that aren't currently locked in. Like, we'll start at the bottom. Chase Elliott at 50-1. He's
That's
popular
stupid.
this week. His odds are pretty short. They're inside single digits. If you are hopping on the Chase Elliott train for a win, which he very much can do. He's one of the best cars. I've seen him high on a lot of people's pre-practice, pre-qualifying rankings. 50-1 is insane. I think there was 60 floating around somewhere. I don't know if that still exists. I would bet it. In fact, did at 40. So if you can get, I think, north of there, I think you fire.
Yeah, look, Elliott is elite here at Martinsville. He's led over 50 laps in four of the 5 Gen 7 trips here. Yeah, his finishes leave a lot to be desired with just one finish better than 10th, a third this spring. But the fact that he's able to find the front as often as he does here, it just goes to show you that this is a guy that is very familiar with running really well here. Literally, his entire season is on the line. And we went into last week with the same rhetoric about Tyler Reddick, and the same could be said about 3 to 4 guys this week, and Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Elliott. So I expect all 3 of these dudes to come here with their best foot forward, as much speed as we've seen out of them all year, and especially Elliott, who surprised the shit out of me and was way better at Homestead than I had anticipated. He probably had the best car in the intermediate runs.
He was consistently one of the, if not the best car. He was consistently working his way back to the front every time he got pit cycled or whatever.
Yep.
I think that was probably our biggest miss of just not expecting that from him, but seeing that from him was good. And honestly, you don't even have to bet his outright this week. If you don't want to bet 6-1, 8-1, 10-1, whatever you can find, fine. Bet 50-1, hold it in your pocket, and if he wins, then you have a nice ticket going to Phoenix, little parlay. And if he doesn't win, then $10 down the road for $500 payday, whatever.
Yeah, and to your point, like, you're not even going to get these odds if you roll over a race win this week with 4-1 next week in Phoenix, which is what the longest shot championship guy is going to be. I mean, we saw it a couple years ago when Logano, I think we got him at like plus 420 or plus 410 or something the week of the championship race. Yeah. I don't think you're going to see that again, because I think books are kind of privy to the idea, like, if these 4 guys made the championship, their cars are getting souped up by their teams and NASCAR, and they're all going to have a shot.
And it's also Chase Elliott. It's not Joey Logano or Kyle Busch or Chris Buescher. Like, it's Chase effing Elliott. If he's there, the chance to win, there's going to be so many $10, $20, $30 bets on him. They're going to have to put him at like 350 at the longest.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because they're going to take a ton of action on Elliott, the most popular driver in the sport. So they're not going to want to hang a long number on him in Phoenix anyways. That's a great point. I didn't even factor that in. So anything 40 or above on Elliott to win the championship still is basically a must add to your card if you don't have exposure or if you have shorter numbers.
Pulling up a parlay calculator just to do some simple math, but like, even if we call him 4-1 and he's like, if the best,
I think 10-1 this week, longest.
Okay, so we'll say 10, give him the benefit of the doubt. That's basically 50-1, and that's assuming he's 10-1, and assuming you can get 4-1 on him at Phoenix, which you probably can't get either. The most likely, we'll say 3-1, and like 8-1, which I've seen a lot of places.
Yeah.
Oh wait, let me do this. He's like 35-1. So, and books, they don't give you the true value on parlays. They squeeze the shit out of you. Yeah. So if you can get, I think if you can get 40 or better, I would be happy to put that in my pocket, especially if I didn't have any Chase or if I had some other guys, especially if you have some names locked in, that makes it even easier. Like Brian and I both have Logano and Reddick tickets.
On big numbers.
Having those locked in definitely makes it easier to kind of get aggressive. I also love Ryan Blaney. We obviously love him.
Yep.
This week, we think he can absolutely win. Books have priced him such. The fact that he's still 25-1 is, and I know there's a lot that has to go right, but he can absolutely win. And if he gets there, we saw last year, he can easily be the guy that you need and wins the championship back to back.
Well, and then also too, clearly there's other people way smarter at this than I am, but although it seems like must-win territory for both Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott, I mean, hypothetically speaking, what if Christopher Bell and JGR, they have their damn stupid engine issue pop up and his engine blows up, within the first 50 laps of the race. And he finishes with, as Wormy would say, a DFL, dead effing last. He can't rack up any points throughout the day. Both of those guys are running 1 and 2, 1 through 3 the entire race. They accumulate stage points, and then they're going to finish 30 something spots ahead of him. That easily makes up the point differential on Christopher Bell. And then, we all saw what Kyle Larson did last week in Homestead. He's the most likely guy amongst the 6 to wreck himself. Like, nobody is safe this week at Martinsville. This playoffs, as much shit as people have talked about the playoffs format,
it's been the best. It's so good.
This has been incredible. You couldn't have asked for better drama on the
literally the best final 3 races, the best round of 8 options, a compelling contest going in to the last race of the regular season, or I guess I mean it's the playoffs, but before the championship. You have the best names in theory all year long: Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin. On the outside looking in, you have Christopher Bell hanging on by a thread. You have Byron, who's been rock solid all year, barely in right now, but could easily be out even if he finishes 5th and gets maybe some stage points. If Elliott or Blaney win, and one of those, and Larson or Hamlin or Bell, like those guys could all jump and kind of move everything around. This has been compelling. We had good racing. Vegas was fun. Obviously, Homestead was an incredible race. Like, Bell is like kicking himself because he had the best car, Vegas, and couldn't quite get there. And now Logano took his spot, and now he may be on the outside looking in when we go to Phoenix. It's crazy. Like, you couldn't write a script this good.
Yeah, and I think what's even crazier about this is that when you look at the 2 guys that are currently locked in, when you look at this group of drivers, I think they were probably the 2 least likely drivers that people would have pegged as, oh yeah, they're going to be locked in before the final race of the round.
Tyler Reddick, but there was a reason he was 14-1, 16-1, 18-1. Logano was almost 20-1 when the season started. He got as long as 40-1 right before the playoffs. He luck boxed his way in because of Bowman's malfunction or whatever, and then locks himself. Of course, he wins Vegas and locks himself into the first the first round
in Joey Logano fashion.
Yeah. So it's been an incredible playoffs, and it reminded me why I love the sport so much.
Yes, I am full blown. I don't really give a flying F about the NFL the next 2 weekends whatsoever. I can say that.
Yeah. So, like Elliott, I think I want 50, 40's fine. Blaney at 30. I'm actually going to look at our betting card because I'm going to add. So this is what me and Brian have so far.
I will say, just for aesthetics purposes, I won't put any more on here, but
for aesthetic purposes, I'm going to add some more just because I think they're good numbers, and I'm going to fire. So I want Caesars here, and I want FanDuel here. So Blaney at 40, or what was it? Was it 40? No, 30.
I was just going to say, no way Blaney is 40. Yeah, he's 30.
No, Blaney is 30, and then I can get Elliott at 50. Just crazy. So this is 30, and then this is 50. Yeah, I have some Elliott at 9 from early in the year, but adding a little bit at 50, even if it's just like a little bit of a bite. And obviously you want to do some math, like especially if you have some sort of exposure.
Yeah.
Like what does your numbers look like? What potential values? Like have you bet 5 drivers, maybe $10 a piece, you have $50. If any of them win, you win 500 or something. Like, do the math, figure it out, and then figure out where you can add exposure. Because Blaney, we'll look at odds, but Blaney at 6-1, Elliott 8-1, Denny is 4-1. He's basically.
I was just gonna say, so Denny is currently 25-1 championship at Bet Rivers, and even if you're sitting on a earlier Denny championship, you got to add that number for more exposure.
And he's 22 at FanDuel and at DraftKings, so that means you can at least get 22 almost anywhere. So
yeah, and clearly if you've been watching our show or you watch everybody else's show, like if you tune into the NASCAR betting preview show or you listen to Wormy, or you listen to him and Todd talk on the Stay Green podcast, like we've been advocating for adding guys like Logano, like Reddick at these astronomical numbers way ahead of time. And so if you're already sitting on those with the two guys that are currently locked in, just go ahead and add all of these other dudes and just do the math to make sure you're allocating the funds properly to where you're guaranteeing yourself a profit. And even a guy like Larson right now, where you can get him out as long as 5, I think I saw 6 when it originally reopened at BetMGM.
There's a 6 at FanDuel right now.
Yeah, like if you don't have any exposure on Larson, go ahead and add that for a tiny bit to even hedge the rest of your stuff. Like,
yeah, like I bet Kyle Larson at 6 like 3 months ago, and he was basically 3-1 from that point to now. So the fact that you can still get 6 a week ahead of Phoenix is crazy, because if he goes there, he's half that. So if you want to just bet your Phoenix, and he's in a position where he doesn't need to win, he just needs to have a strong race. And obviously, can he win? Sure.
Like I worry about him being able to do that without being
well. Yeah, I mean, if he shits the bed, he shits the bed. But if he has a strong race, although it was funny, they were Wormy and Furman were talking on Twitter about like a market where you can either have them be top 5 or the last 5. And I was like, what is Larson in that market? Like minus 10,000? Like he is the favorite to either win the race or be last. Like there's not a lot of middle ground. But for a Larson, and you can even bet a little bit of his race win if you want. And you know what we did once, Brian, and I don't know if I think the books might have gotten onto this and not made it work. But we did bet a driver to win this week and win the championship. And I don't know if we can do that anymore.
Oh yeah, you parlay, that's right.
Yeah, I think I did that with Joey Logano if I remember right. But no, yeah, that's dead. Let's see if I can add it. But yeah,
that would be fun with a guy like Chase Elliott if you got that would be incredible.
I can't parlay the DraftKings, but shop around. I'm sure you can find a book that did it. I forget where I did it. Maybe MGM. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't. That's years ago, before they even started opening up markets as much as they have. But yeah, look, if you don't have exposure to the guys that we just referenced that are below the cut line, I think you have to add them to your card in some fashion this week. Like clearly I don't have them all on the show card. Personally, I will tell you, I have every single guy remaining in the playoffs, and I'm naked on William Byron and Christopher Bell, which is terrifying. But
I bet everybody but Byron. And in that case, Brian, and we were talking about this a little bit before, but
I was just going to
reference his current number, we're just going to wait. We'd rather know he's locked in and double our bet at 3 or 4-1 than bet him at 8-1.
Yeah, and I think the same could be said about Christopher Bell. He's safe right now in the current standings, but the number that he's currently still being offered at is only going to drop $1, say when he gets to Phoenix. Like if he pops off at 2-1 to win the championship, I'm not going to be surprised, but I would much rather wait to see him get there. Like I've made my bed with the fact that I didn't bet Bell when I should have at the 7.5 number. So now I'm waiting until he gets to Phoenix.
And with Reddick locked in and the potential of Larson being the 4th driver.
Yeah.
Bell could be 3.5-1. They could just make all those guys like plus 275 or 3-1 and just say, we got nothing. Figure it out yourself.
I was just going to say, I feel like we're in a world where, let's say the final 4 is Reddick, Logano, Larson, Bell. I think it's fair to assume that all 4 of those guys have odds at 3 or shorter.
Yeah.
And the hold is incredible, just simply because all 4 of those guys are going to have a chance to win, and they've all shown speed, and we know how good Logano can be with multiple weeks of prep time.
Yeah, I will say we're looking pretty good with you. This is our draft. The odds are gone, but because we had an issue with our sheet. But you took Reddick, which obviously is locked in, but in Hamlin, who probably could be the other guy, and then Byron, and then I took Logano as my last pick, which is great. I really hope Blaney is the name, but then Larson and Bell. So we're sitting pretty good. And then obviously I bet Logano and Reddick to make the final four. So that was nice. All right, Brian. So before we turn the page, obviously bet Chase Elliott, bet Ryan Blaney, and honestly bet Denny Hamlin if you have. I think the other guys are just simply too short at this point. Unless you want some Larson, which I get. Like if you can get 525 on Larson, there's a 6 at FanDuel. I think if you can get 6 at FanDuel, especially, and you don't have any Larson, I think it's a good bet just because if he gets in, he's going to be half that, maybe shorter.
Yeah, like I feel like that's the same number that Bell should be offered at as well. No,
Yeah.
he's 29 points to the good, but that could be made up in two stages. Like
Yeah. They're not as worried about him shitting the bed as much as Larson, who
I'm worried about his equipment. Like
yeah. And he's not like the best guy here, but he's really
not.
good.
He's the worst of the 6 current guys still looking to advance.
All right, Brian, I'm gonna have you put your pride on the line here. Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, who joins them in Phoenix contending for a championship?
Oh my god.
And you can use your heart, you can use your head, you can use some combination, you can use your pocketbook.
All right. I think Kyle Larson gets through. I just think that team is too. I mean, just look at it last week. Quick little tangent. Had Kyle Larson waited to make a move on Ryan Blaney, he's probably winning that race, which would be effing ridiculous considering he said he suffered some sort of undercarriage damage when he blew a tire, hit the wall. Like, how many times have we seen this team be able to do that? So
Kyle Larson's the best driver in NASCAR. It's not even close.
Yeah. I'm never going to count the 5 out. So I think somehow, some way he gets through. Not with a win. And I think, man, this is so hard. I'm trying to not be
just say 12. It's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna go with Blaney. I just can't. The dude is so good at Martinsville, and Kyle and I mentioned this prior to jumping on with each other. I have this suspicion that Penske's plan this week is they're gonna bring their typical qualifying setups here. Him and Logano are gonna qualify up front, and they're gonna run tandem as much as possible, with Logano basically being Daryl Moose Johnson to Emmett Smith all day. Like, that is their plan coming into this race to try to get Blaney advanced. And I think Blaney, what we saw last year, repeats itself. And he's just the best car on the long run again here. It's going to be tough. Elliott's really good, but yeah, Blaney and Larson joining the random tandem of Joey Logano and Tyler Reddick in Phoenix for a championship.
So Blaney's had an interesting close to the season. He was 37th at Darlington, then 3rd, then 38th, and 6th, and 4th, and 39th, and 10th, and 32nd, and 2nd. A lot of great, bad in there.
Well, he had a couple of them where they weren't his fault. Remember, Marty took him out like 2 races ago.
I know. I know. He had the best car and he got taken out in lap 2. I know.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm going to say. My fandom, heart, and wallet will all be rooting for 12 on Sunday. That being said, the 2 cars that I think make it through to the round of final, to the 4, is the 20 of Christopher Bell. I think he's just rock solid all day. I don't think he does anything stupid. I think he does just enough to sneak in. And I think Chase Elliott's for competing for a championship.
Gosh, that's just gross.
Yeah. And it's going to be Logano, Reddick, Chris Bell, and Chase Elliott. That's going to be
all right in that scenario. Okay, so let's take this one step forward now that we've picked that.
Yeah.
Who wins the championship?
45.
Who?
The 45. Red Dog gets it in, and Red Dog gets it done.
I mean, clearly I'm going for that. And let me just say, I will be people will have to mute me on Twitter if Tyler Reddick wins because I get a lot of shit for being the Tyler Reddick every week better, and I've bet him a lot this year. That being said, he's won me an awful lot of money. I
Remember
actually
we
went back
talked
and
about Tyler Reddick versus Ty Gibbs as like who's gonna win next?
yeah, remember
That was
that?
real dumb. That was real dumb.
The only thing I'll say about Reddick is that pit crew situation does scare me when it comes down to championship race, because even when they put together their best pit stops, they're still like 3/10 worse than everybody else minimum. And if he doesn't have the number one pit stall in Phoenix, like that is going to be a huge detriment to that.
The one thing I will say is William Byron was the best car all year last year, had an incredible pit crew, but it wasn't good enough to get it done at Phoenix. And sometimes you have your
That's
magic
true.
race and it all comes together.
Yeah.
Um,
I will also add, like, honestly, at this point, it's gravy for me. Like
Yeah.
the racing that we've seen has been amazing.
been so much
I'm just
fun.
hoping that we get 2 more incredible races and people look, we're all victims of the moment. Everybody Homestead is probably the best track in the sport, I think, in overall racing. And as long as we don't get an absolute stomping in Phoenix, I think that'll help kind of quell some of the get Phoenix
Na-
out of the championship.
yeah, I mean NASCAR's in a great spot right now. It's really progressing. It's got their best guys primed for big spotlight. Um, we're getting some. We've had some between it, Suarez, Atlanta last week. What was it? Darlington, I think was a crazy finish.
Well,
Like
you
we've had
got Richmond when
Richmond.
Dylan punted Logano, like
Yeah,
Kansas.
well, that too.
Yeah, both Kansas races. Just the intrigue, and then going back to that, the intrigue of Vegas with Austin Dillon or Austin Dillon, Christopher Bell running down. Who the hell was it? Logano there at the end of the race there.
Yeah. So with all that being said, let's actually talk this week's race, and figure out how we want to bet it because it's an interesting week. Obviously, we're both holding some serious tickets on some serious names. So it's like, how do you want to bet it? Do you even want to bet it? Do you want to just kind of let things unfold and figure it out? That being said, my first bet of the week, potentially my only outright of the week, I bet the 9 to get to victory lane. I got it at 850. I don't know if that number exists anymore. I know there was some 9 and some 10 early, but I think both of those are gone.
I am very reluctant to give out the fact that Chase Elliott is still 10 at Superbook. I'm trying to find a way to get a proxy out there.
That's also Vegas exclusive. So
yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah, so certain people can get there, and I think the people that would be betting there already know. So let's see, what does MGM have him at? Yeah, he's pretty much 8-1 everywhere. So I will be adding.
he's 9-1 at Bet365.
Okay, 9-1, done.
Yeah,
done. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Chase Elliott. Those are the guys inside 10-1. Are you joining me on the 9? Or are you betting anyone else?
yeah. It's so obviously I've been monitoring the odds as soon as they started coming out yesterday afternoon. I'm still trying to formulate my plan for the race and how I want to attack this because as much as I want to grab like Elliott, I think you're good just grabbing his championship future and then back that up with the championship like race win or placements there. I don't think you have to go both championship and race this weekend. I would say they're championship futures on the guys that are out that are still super long are must bets simply because you're not going to get that value if they do win this week. And because of how short everybody is, there's a part of me that wants to wait to make sure that these guys unload quick because,
Yeah.
a lot of people are failing to remember we're running a completely different tire setup here than we did the last time we came to Martinsville. It's two different tire compounds on the right and the left sides, a combination we've never run here, I believe. So, practice is going to be really important to see how these guys unload.
Yeah, I'm trying not to fire too many bullets early. I will say I did lie. My first bet was the 20 at 12, and I added the 9. So I've added Chase Elliott at 9, and I added Chris Bell at 12. Just because if they unload, it's an interesting week just because there's so many compelling names, so many championship potential on the line. A great track for like 12, the for Larson, for Hamlin. Like there's a lot of names. Byron, if he looks great, like the numbers could get all jumbled up. But I'm grabbing 8 with Chase, and I'm grabbing 12 with Bell, and then I'm gonna be pretty patient for the most part, and wait and see, like you said, how practice goes, how qualifying goes, and figure out where these numbers settle. Because I think we're gonna have some really compelling discussions to make on Saturday night. My optimism is that grabbing Bell and Chase at bigger numbers now, when we recap on Saturday night, those numbers are basically cut in half, and I get an opportunity to add potentially a Blaney or a Byron, and part of me is also like, maybe I'll just bet Byron this week if he looks awesome, and then roll that over to his championship future if he actually wins. And then I'm getting, 6, 7, 8 this week plus 3 or 4 next week, and then I'm actually getting a decent number, so I don't feel like I'm getting smoked on his 8-1 or 7-1.
Yeah, and then like something else I was looking at prior to jumping on here, just kind of looking at trends here at Martinsville in the playoffs, and we've only had one non-playoff driver win this race since it became the penultimate track. That was Alex Bowman back in 2021. So, HMS. And then when you look at the finishes here at this track since the next gen era, like it is a who's who of the playoffs, finishing near the front or just dominating the race for that matter. When, you look at last year, Ryan Blaney was the best car, maybe 1B. I would say he's the best car. Denny Hamlin, currently in the playoffs at that time, second best car. And then, Chase Elliott, who wasn't even in the playoffs at the time, he led 83 laps that day. So when you factor that into this conversation, you got Denny, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Elliott all the lowest on the totem pole in the standings. Again, it leads me to want to wait to see how the three of these guys unload, and knowing my buddy Kyle had texted me about a Briscoe number, and I was like, don't fall for the Briscoe guy. Like,
We only get 2 more races to bet SHR.
I'm approaching this race the same way that I did at Homestead and outrights. And for the most part, the majority of my card outside of like long shot placements and all that stuff are going to be the playoff guys. I'm not getting cute with trying to pick out like, oh, who do I think can run long here? And, try to give out a Ryan Priest top 10 at 7-1, which, I might play that by myself, but I don't think it's a great bet because this is going to be a playoff driver's race.
Are you interested in any non-playoff driver to win?
Probably not. I just think that the field of playoff drivers is so strong this year that need a win. I think we get the same or close to the same situation we just saw, where there's 2 to 3 playoff guys up front coming to the end.
And I think if you had a Blaney, a Hamlin, a Larson, somebody, even a Chris Bell on the outside looking in, and they weren't in the playoff, and we were going to Martinsville, I might be interested in firing. But the fact that not only are the best cars and the people that typically thrive at the top of the odds board, but they're also the playoff drivers. So, like, I have no interest in going to other people. I mean, I'm going to do Briscoe just because, like I said, I got 2 races left. And I I got to fire one more time, but that's not a good bet. That's a stupid bet. That's just to make me, to do.
I will say, I think Briscoe placement bets this week.
Oh, Brian froze into oblivion. So, with that being said, well, I think we'll use. Are you back? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think if I'm betting Briscoe placement bets, I want to bet at somewhere where he's at least 22, 25 to get good numbers.
Well, like I said, Superbook in Vegas, they had him at 30.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you go ahead and just like fire a top 10 and just double my bet and not think about it.
Yeah. So I was gonna say before I froze into oblivion, I think Joey Logano, I was chatting with Ryan for my fantasy race over on the X machine, and he could probably wake up late, run to the track, jump in his car with zero prep, and still run well here at Martinsville. So placement bets on him this week, unlike last week, I think are very much in play because of what I said too in that Penske Garage's strategy of him possibly trying to play blocker for Blaney, which means he's also going to have to run well.
Yeah. And maybe it's like a little way to hedge a little bit, but if you go to like top Ford, maybe you throw a little bit on Logano at 450, and that way if Blaney isn't the top Ford and doesn't get through,
What's the top
recoup
Chevy market, by the way?
Let's take a look. Larson at 130, Byron at 290, Chase at 310, and then it's just a huge drop off to Bowman, Busch, Chastain, and then a huge drop off to Suarez. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you could bet Larson at plus 130.
I don't think you can bet any of those guys.
I mean, I don't hate Elliott at 3.
Yeah. I'd rather just bet him to win at 8 or 9. But yeah, I mean, it could be a Toyota. Blaney wins, Toyotas are there, and then he's cashing that top Chevy. Denny Hamlin plus 110, Chris Bell plus 360, Truex 550, Reddick way down here at 10-1. Obviously,
Yeah, he's no, absolutely not. I think Reddick is this week's Logano. Like, if you can find matchups with Reddick, you fade the shit out of him.
What about Toyota to win at plus 180?
That's not bad because then you're getting both Denny and Christopher Bell.
Yeah.
I actually don't hate that.
I mean, I guess I see why Chevy's a little bit of a favorite with Chase and Larson and Byron. But
yeah, but plus 180, that
seems good.
I mean, you're only getting 2 cars though, because I don't think anybody else in that garage is. Marty is like fully checked out. He's not in the conversation this week. Everybody that's been riding him, we gotta look. It's the end of the road here. We gotta stop.
If everyone's getting off, I might have to get on.
Oh my god!
It's Marty's last Martinsville.
Could you imagine if this is the race that he steals from people?
It would certainly be one way to go out with double birds, although maybe he wins Phoenix and just rides off into the sunset.
That would be epic.
We saw Ross do it last year. I got FedEx out my window, so doorbell might ring here in a second. But let's call it a day. It was good to hop on. It was good to chat. It was good to get our thoughts out. Get ready for the championship a week early. Load up that card now so you're not betting 2 and 3 to 1, even if it's just for a small play and then coming back and filling it out later. I think there's going to be opportunity. I think you want to get in on it. Amazing times at Homestead. We're ecstatic for Martinsville, and then obviously we'll be back for Phoenix, and then Brian Twining will be taking a little breather. We'll have a couple months off and not know what to do with ourselves for a while, but eventually we'll have to regroup and come back for the 500 again in February. Make sure you are subscribed so you know when all of our videos come out. Hit the little bell notification. Let us know down in the comments who are the other 2 drivers joining Logano and Reddick in the NASCAR playoff. Regardless of odds,
winner.
Yeah, let us know who you think's getting there. We'll be back Saturday night in your feed Sunday morning. The newsletter will also be out with our picks and our thoughts and all that stuff. So make sure you subscribe to that. Link in the description. That's Brian Twining. We'll be coming to you from fabulous Las Vegas next weekend while they're in Martinsville. I will be in the cave. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.